Good morning and welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar. I'm Stephanie, not Isabel, like stated in the attendee list. And today, my colleague Jelle and me from the SKIS team are happy to present you common challenges and enablers for the application of smart city solutions. Before we will present common challenges and enablers of 4 measures, followed after every measure a short moment to ask your questions. We will going to introduce you to SKIS, why we're holding this webinar, and how we will present the results. Smart Cities Information System, or SCIS, is an EU initiative that collects data, experience, and know-how from past and running energy efficient and smart cities projects. The goal is to facilitate replication of smart city solutions by sharing knowledge through a free platform. Smart solutions require new, efficient, and user-friendly technologies and services, in particularly in the areas of energy, transport, and ICT. The platform offers insights in more than 100 EU-funded projects. Among those, 12 smart cities and community lighthouse projects currently receive funding within the EU Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Programme. Recently, 2 projects have been added. Together, the projects have 36 lighthouse cities where demonstration activities are carried out. These lighthouse cities act as examples for their region by paving the way for application of these solutions, adapted to different sizes and local conditions. Follower cities are defined as cities that have not yet acquired the full technical competence to become a lighthouse city, but look towards it for inspiration and guidance. Over more than 30 follower cities are learning from these experiences. At the Nordic Edge Expo in September in Norway, Stavanger, a session for fostering replication and upscaling of smart city solutions took place among the lighthouse community. This session is part of a series of workshops following the event organized in January and preceding the upcoming event next week in Barcelona. The event fostered roundtable discussions with municipal representatives and their partners presenting best practices for the topic under discussion. The participating members who are planning to procure this solution introduce their plans for implementation of the solution and explain barriers and challenges they face. The table members could then help the cities with overcoming these challenges by giving them suggestions. The webinar today will summarize the findings of these discussions using the example of 4 specific measures. Those 4 measures have been selected by the group of the Lighthouse projects to be the center of their cooperation, as common work on those could demonstrate the scale-up potential of solutions developed collectively. Each measure will be presented in 5 minutes, followed by a Q&A session where you will be free to ask questions and share your experience. You can also use the chat option, like I said before. If possible, we will handle your question. In any case, your input today will be processed and shared on the website. A last note to cover on the methodology. To cover all aspects of a complex system, the summary is based on a knowledge theory called multimodal system analysis. Simply stated, this analysis could be labeled as an extension of the standard sustainability 3 Ps, being planet, people, prosperity, towards a 6P framework. In terms of bottlenecks for smart and sustainable city projects, we may distinguish technological bottlenecks, missing technical solution pieces, social and behavioral bottlenecks, like lack of acceptance and public support or resistance to change, then lack of appropriate business models and financing mechanism, lack of competence or knowledge and risk aversion, regulatory and juridical bottlenecks, and last, lack of appropriate governance structure, lack of political resistance. Keep in mind that bottlenecks cannot always be identified as one aspect, but might cover multiple aspects. I'd like to give the word to Jelle now, who will kick off with smart lighting and the challenges in this topic.
Thank you, Stephanie. The first group of solutions that has been discussed is related to integrated infrastructure. The type of solutions can be very different. At the staffing and replication workshop, two solutions have been discussed, being smart lighting systems and lampposts, and urban data platforms. From the one hand, since we are talking about integrated infrastructure, these solutions combine knowledge and technologies from several domains. As such, smart lighting systems and lampposts do not only offer the correct amount of light. Apparently, you're not hearing me so well. We'll try to solve this. Can everybody hear me now? Okay, now it seems to be fine. So I will just start again, and then so that everybody's following. So I said that the first group of solutions that we will discuss is related to integrated infrastructure. There are very different type of solutions, and at the staffing and replication workshop, two solutions have been discussed in particular, being smart lighting systems and lampposts and urban data platform. So at first, since we are talking about integrated infrastructure, these solutions combine knowledge and technologies from several domains. And as such, smart lighting systems and lampposts do not only offer the correct amount of light at the correct moment, but they also give the opportunity to collect data via several sensors or to deliver real-time information to passers-by, while at the same time being used as charging pole for electric vehicles and so on. On the other hand, from the name integrated infrastructure, it is clear that these technologies can be connected. For example, an urban data platform can be used to collect the data available from smart lampposts, to combine this data with information available from other systems, such as renewable energy production, and to process this data in a useful way. Taken all of this into account, integrated infrastructure can definitely contribute to the improvement of system efficiencies, be it energetic efficiencies, efficiency of communication, or others. Now, if we look at all challenges faced within integrated infrastructure, they are of different kinds for the different solutions. Some that often return are firstly user engagement, secondly a lack of competencies, mainly related due to the fact that these technologies are still rather new, and thirdly the fact that integrated infrastructure by definition includes several domains and as such cuts across silos. For smart lampposts, this multi-domain issue is mainly translated in technological challenges. For example, with engineers having to work over the boundaries of different domains. For urban data platforms, on the other hand, this is rather a challenge of convincing stakeholders to share cross-border information with others. When looking at possible solutions, recurring answers includes demonstrating the added value of solutions to as much relevant stakeholders as possible, and also doing this as early as possible during the project. Being transparent and thinking in terms of services might also help to strengthen user engagement. And finally, starting small and at the same time focusing on the future potential that can be exploited could help to competences and cross-border collaboration. As a final common note, it was good to see that common next steps for smart lighting systems and lampposts and for urban data platforms include combining learnings from several projects across Europe and leveraging scale in order to realize wider benefits. We will now highlight in some more detail the results for smart lighting systems and lampposts, since this is one of the 4 technologies that the Lighthouse projects will focus on. From a technological perspective, maintenance costs could be high, especially for smaller projects, but as cities will be leveraging the scale, as we just said, this might solve part of this challenge. Secondly, although new lighting systems save energy due to higher efficiency and more optimal usage, they might require more material resources and especially more rare materials. From a social perspective, we already mentioned user engagement for smart lampposts. This is mainly about political engagement. Here, the workshop participants raised that one of the possible incentives for politicians could be that lighting system replacement increases employment. From a financial perspective, it seems like defining a good business model is still a challenge due to the fact that potential benefits are not yet clearly identified. Here, the intention of cities to share lessons learned could help to make the benefits clear. We already mentioned that since these are new technologies, knowledge availability is often a challenge. Next to this, apparently public procurement is also a point of attention because there is a lack of experience and it takes a long time to complete such a procurement process. Here, it is worth noticing that there was a workshop on innovative procurement, of which we will not discuss the results in detail today, but lessons learned from this one will in the future be made available as well on the SKIS website. From a juridical perspective, the main challenges in dealing with legacy contracts and systems. And then finally, we already mentioned that the fact that smart lighting systems and lampposts are multi-domain solutions, so it challenges engineers involved in their design. Since it is new, there are also not many examples available. And we already discussed on the challenge of working together across departments and sectors. And here, starting with smaller projects could bring part of the solution since it offers the opportunity to show the benefit of joint working early in the process. To end with, we name some more suggestions that have been raised during this workshop. It was raised that political leadership can drive change, and to convince politicians, it might help to pinpoint the fact that lighting system replacement increases employment. To increase user engagement, we said that showing the added value is important. For smart lampposts, an example of social and environmental value of data measurements via the lampposts could be the increased awareness on, for example, air pollution. Also, making sure that local businesses can benefit from this new system could give good incentives. Then some extra points that were not yet mentioned. It was pointed out that it is important not just to do another pilot project every time again, but really to exploit the Lighthouse program for tools and capacity. To tackle the challenges of legacy arrangements, buy-in should be secured early in the process. And the fact that technology is multidisciplinary brings challenges, but at the same time, it could bring new opportunities and these could be exploited. These were the conclusions for the integrated infrastructure team. We left the third column open on purpose because our first question to you is what are you planning to do as next steps in the field of integrated infrastructure, taking into account the lessons learned and the challenges that we just discussed over the last 10 minutes. If you have some suggestions, then feel free to share them in the chat box with us.
So like Jelle said, if there are any questions about smart lighting, please ask them and he will respond in the way he can when I'm introducing you to low energy districts. So the topic low energy districts cover deep renovation of the existing building stock, of course, the integration of renewable energy sources, and supported by energy management systems. The deep renovation of the existing building stock of residential and non-residential buildings reduces energy consumption and greenhouse gas emission. But conserving energy is not the only reason for retrofitting existing buildings. Doing so will mean that the building will be less costly to operate, will increase in value, last longer, and contribute to a better, healthier, more comfortable environment for people in which to live and work. Further, when deciding on a retrofit, possibly consider upgrading for accessibility, safety, and security at the same time. The integration of renewable energy sources reduces further the building energy requirements from conventional technologies to a minimum. Storage energy systems support renewable energy systems as well by collecting and releasing energy at different times, aiming at reducing energy use as well. These building integrated sources allow using local resources, reduce distribution losses, and take advantage of the large surface occupied by building at district levels. The most common examples of renewable energy sources are solar system in roof or facades, small biomass boilers, or geothermal energy. To support above solutions, managing the energy and other needs in buildings and districts efficiently add considerable benefits. An energy management system is a method to monitor and control energy needs, either by reducing it, either by shifting it during the day to flatten the demand shape. In order to properly shift the demand among consumers at different times, the district energy management system predicts and monitors both the energy generation and user consumption, providing information to the end user and allowing him to take part. The system can also control and monitor a large variety of other aspects of the building, such as heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, lighting, or security measures. If we look at those three measures, the most common recurrent challenge among them is user engagement and commitment before and after the works. Projects encounter difficult communication with tenants, especially in social housing contexts, lack of knowledge and environmental awareness of tenants, or tenants having other priorities due to age or, for example, economical vulnerability. And tenants' approval for a solution and privacy rules are time-consuming and make data collection and aggregation difficult. On top of that, conventional energy prices is still too low to make higher efficient measure financially interesting. The solution that recurs, although it is a buzzword, is citizen engagement and embarked tenants in a citizen journey from the beginning on. Although this can be time-consuming as well, it is worth a while. Some of the possibilities are challenging tenants, conducting surveys, providing training, organizing study visits to frontrunners, and so on, which in turn will make tenants more open for data collection. Illustrating added value and secondary benefits other than return on investments, like I mentioned in the beginning, can make energy efficient measures more interesting. As next step, please take in mind, provide enough engagement after the implementation of the solution, upscale developed system to other buildings, and spread gained knowledge or methodology to other stakeholders. If we look at retrofitting in particular, like mentioned before, a benefit is reducing operational costs and environmental impact, and the possibility to increase building adaptability, durability, and resilience. There are different well-known innovative solutions available in retrofitting to gain benefits in terms of energy and resource efficiency, including the integration of photovoltaic panels, insulation, and innovation in construction components that provide architectural flexibility. Energy supply units can be upgraded or replaced by state-of-the-art technology, and room layouts reassessed and optimized. We already touched upon social challenges such as user resistance and regulatory challenges such as the need for tenants' approval of solutions and monitoring, but especially for retrofitting, the burden on tenants due to noise during the works, relocation of the tenants, and administrative burden is very high. Other regulatory and juridical challenges is a slow and sometimes complex process of building permits, prohibition to transfer electricity between buildings and cities not having the possibility to put forward more ambitious demands for buildings than opposed by national legislation. Obvious recommendations include promoting energy exchange and facilitating permitting for energy retrofitting. A suggestion that came from a project is to achieve this by local authorities to partner up and to have a stronger voice to change national regulation, and this is being done in Denmark. A technological barrier is defining a good and ambitious baseline energy consumption, especially in buildings where energy consumption is high, and designing a good monitoring system. A common challenge is the well-known energy performance gap. A suggestion to assure desired energy saving or results, like comfort, is to include energy performance in procurement and specify the expected energetic and comfort performance in tenders and contracts. You can also make use of demand response and weather forecasts to manage energy performance of buildings. Other suggestions in technological area are smart metering, individual thermal control, and energy measurements on an individual level or at building level, and making use of Internet of Things devices and real data monitoring. A good choice of the buildings you are going to renovate is also very crucial. The coordination of the renovation works of multi-owner buildings is often a challenge. On the other hand, half-empty buildings and cultural heritage are harder for replicating solutions. So take into account location, typology, legal context, and more when choosing a building to renovate. When focusing on similar buildings, tailor-made solution can be applied to them from a technical point of view. But targeting a mixed building portfolio, like residential and tertiary, or big facilities could be beneficial for your business case due to high flexibility or economy of scale. Regarding governance, integrate other partners in the retrofitting projects and aim for a single holistic project instead of several smaller ones. To counter the lack of local staff skills, you could provide local training and ask for requirements and penalties. To end, we're looking at the financing challenges. Facilitate one loan for the whole operation to cover investment costs and avoid tenants having to make the investment in one go. A challenge is the discrepancy between owner paying the retrofitting investments and tenant paying the energy bills. Consider a financial mix by ESCOs, collective funding, municipal funding, or a combination, for example, public-private partnerships. A quick win for increasing return on investments is by incorporating PV installations or combining several forms of retrofitting. So not only energy retrofitting. I like to end with a recurring and already mentioned important next step is spread gained knowledge and transform methodologies you used and are proven to be successful to other stakeholders and peers. Now it's time to ask questions. Again, you can do it in the chat, and if I can, I will answer them during the next presentation.
We will wait half a minute more before we go to the next set of slides. Okay, if there are no further questions, then we will continue now with the urban mobility. Can you hear me properly now? Okay, then we will continue with I see that some questions are coming in. We will have a look at it and in the meantime continue with the next topic that is on urban mobility. So for urban mobility, here again, if you have any questions or remarks, feel free to share them in the chat box, and we will, if possible, answer them now or include them in the final results. So urban mobility, everyone will agree that a lot of improvement is possible within urban mobility. At the Stavanger Replication Workshop, 3 specific solutions have been discussed: last mile delivery, e-buses and charging infrastructure, and bike sharing systems. Once again, we will start with presenting the common challenges and solutions for these 3 cases before we go into more detail on bike sharing systems. As often, user engagement is a challenge. For last mile delivery systems, it is mostly about the lack of interest of some key actors like e-commerce, Whereas for e-buses, it is about the bus driver's trust in the system, and for bike sharing systems, it is about the awareness of the benefits this system brings. A common challenge for last mile delivery systems and e-buses is the competition with existing conventional systems. To enhance citizen engagement, common solutions brought forward are cost related or focusing on accessibility or easiness of use and comfort. Also, involving citizens actively both before and during the project could help. From a regulatory and legal perspective, challenges come down to space availability. This can, for example, be about permissions to build some infrastructure or locations for docking stations. A common governance challenge is the integration within the overall system. For last mile delivery, this is about finding a good balance between public and private responsibilities. For bike sharing systems, about integration with other public transport systems. And for e-buses, it is recognized that all heavy-duty vehicles should be electrified to increase the impact. Solutions proposed towards policy are mostly about creating a beneficial environment for new smart solutions by improving administrative processes and intervening in physical traffic situations. Recurring next steps are to integrate the smart solutions within the urban mobility master planning, for example, in infrastructure works, or even to increase the scale of existing systems. Here again, it was good to see that there is the intention to work more closely together with other cities. Now let's move to the bike sharing system and have a closer look at this one. So from a social perspective, it appears to be difficult to have citizen involvement in general. But more specifically, it is hard to convince people that are currently using a car to switch to the bike. One of the reasons for this is the lack of awareness about the benefits of a bike sharing system. Next, difficulties are encountered with specifying the exact numbers of the business case, such as, for example, the length of the free renting time for the bike. There are also some security issues, such as wearing a helmet while biking or the location of bicycle lanes and if there should be other traffic allowed or not. Of course, bike sharing system docking stations require some space to be allocated. Finding this could be a challenge. From a governance perspective, there is a lot of administration involved in developing a bike sharing project. Also, as mentioned, integration of the bike sharing systems within the city, in neighboring cities, and within the public transport system, for example, integrating it with the local bus card is a challenge. To end with on the urban mobility subject, we'll present you some more suggestions that have been made for bike sharing systems. Two policy recommendations came forward, being that the limited speed for cars should be reduced to make streets more bike friendly. And secondly, the planning and permitting processes should speed up. The user incentives that came forward are a low price, good quality of the bicycle pods, and of course, citizen involvement within the strategic planning. Allowing the user to leave his bike behind has in some case increased the system's adoption. Making use of intermodal tickets, which is part of including the bike sharing system within the broader urban planning, as well as making real-time data available, for example, on the availability of bikes in a docking system, are also some suggestions. And finally, it was good to see again that starting with pilot projects and in this case also making use of virtual temporary stations helps to decrease risk. The same goes for sharing lessons learned with other bike sharing projects. That was it for urban mobility. We will wait some more to see if remarks come in. Okay, we will now continue to the fourth and final topic of this webinar, which is about urban governance. In the urban governance category, we will focus on the urban data governance. Again, we will start with highlighting some of the outcomes that were similar for multiple solutions. For the urban governance category, the outcomes were quite diverse. Some that are returning are shown on this slide, and I will now briefly go over them. The first challenge is on data protection, and since some months, also GDPR compliance. Also, data availability and especially data sharing is an often returning challenge. This could be about data sharing between public and private entities, but also about crosswise data sharing between different departments within the same company. The third common challenge is on the availability of adequate competencies and sufficient resources. And finally, we identified appropriate communication. This is related to, for example, convincing stakeholders or to transparency. Now let's focus a bit more on urban data governance. From a technological perspective, integration and migration of data, especially from older and different data sets, and the interoperability between data sets is a challenge. Social challenges include explainability and openness of algorithms, as well as being able to define a transparent policy on data usage that again should be explainable. Business models will be data-based, and also storing, maintaining, and aggregating data requires the correct competences and resource availabilities. Next, we see two challenges that are encountered in several solutions and that I just mentioned before, being GDPR compliance and data availability. Data ownership is challenging when different stakeholders are involved. And the two final challenges that have been identified are first, alignment of the data governance with local or national strategy and policy, and second, the identification of appropriate services that are in line with user expectations and city policy. Citizens could, for example, use data to develop apps that are not compliant with the city's policy. And we should be careful about that. Then to conclude with this topic, we come to some suggestions. From a user incentive perspective, it is important to keep societal implications and benefits in mind. To tackle the challenge of data availability, it could help to embed the data sharing as a requirement in the contract. As a DPO or data protection officer committee, it is advised to assign a multidisciplinary team to take care of user acceptance with regard to the policy on data usage. Public-private partnerships might help. Some next steps that were mentioned during the replication workshop include, and this is where I will end with on this topic. So there are setting up an open data portal for the whole city, automating the tagging and identification of personal data. There is defining procedures and relation models to work with partners, organizing a workshop on UDP or Urban Data Platform governance, and finally collaborating with other cities, sharing the best practices, and also discussing on ongoing projects. I will conclude here with the topic urban governance. This was the last topic of this webinar, so feel free now to share any final comments with us and we will have a look at them. It would also be useful for us to know if you found the content of this webinar relevant, and to share with us how you will use the output of this webinar to the output to take it away within your next project. So also feel free to share any comments on this topic. We will wait a bit more to see if some people are still typing questions. Yeah, something just went wrong with the chat box. We will close the webinar here, and if you have any more remarks, and the ones that have not been answered yet, they will be included in the final presentation that will be shared with you. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. I hope it was useful for you to get a first overview of the outcomes of the replication workshops. So thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to meeting you again in the future.